everyone, this is Steve Rozenberg with Mynd Property Management. Today I'm joined with Trevor Steadman, who is the portfolio manager for our Reno operations. Trevor, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you, Steve, for having me.
All right, Trevor. So the biggest challenge most people have when it comes to fear of having a rental property is the resident living in the property and when things could go wrong. And we all know that that is a possibility, that a relationship could sour. You could put in a bad resident no matter how well you screen them. So when you get a disruptive resident and it's just causing problems, how would you, you're very experienced in this industry, how would you suggest you deal with a disruptive resident?
Yeah, disruptive tenants or disruptive residents are kind of the bane of a lot of investors who regret placing a certain resident in a property, and 2 or 3 months later, now they have a laundry list of things that, have gone left instead of right. Disruptive residents are really difficult to manage only because you have them in a contract. As long as they pay you, at the end of the day, we have to deal with the cards we're given. My biggest recommendation for any self-managing investors, or just in general, do not respond to these residents emotionally. Stick to the facts. Have a good contract in place, a good lease agreement in place that goes over specific things like quiet hours, affecting other residents that are around you, especially in our multifamily market, which in Northern Nevada, we have a pretty large multifamily community here. One disruptive resident could cause you 3 move-outs. It only takes one person to disrupt a community and really leave a sour taste in a lot of other residents' mouths who you'd love to keep. But unfortunately, you have one that is, giving you a different situation.
And then the good ones leave, and then you're stuck with the bad one, and your problem just gets worse because now you can't rent it out to other people because of the bad one. So, yeah, I definitely can see that.
Yeah. The other part of it, identify the facts. Play discovery. I always say play Judge Judy. Yeah. Figure out who is telling the truth. Figure out who is not being 100% truthful. It's not easy. It goes back to taking a little bit of risk, hearing people out, get the whole story, but also set guidelines. Just because a resident at 4 o'clock comes home every day and their neighbor has their radio on, that doesn't necessarily mean that individual is disruptive. That just means that the neighbor isn't being neighborly, or the person who's affected by it isn't communicating with that person in order to resolve it amicably. I tell residents all the time when they come to me with problems, I say, hey, have you taken 5 minutes and gone up and knock on the door? There's nothing more resolving than knocking on a door and having a conversation with someone.
Yeah.
Very important. A lot of times, we can issue notices of, hey, quiet hours are this, this is what's going on, but people don't like to be attacked. People don't like to be singled out when notices come from a landlord. I always say, look, if this problem's here, make sure they know about it, document it, and make sure that the individual, if they're purposefully not taking reasonable steps to cure the problem, then we step in with further repercussions.
Well, Trevor, that's a good point, because I think a lot of people, when it comes to, especially when you're a resident and you're living next to another tenant that's maybe not doing what you think they should do, it starts becoming emotional. And you let that, and a lot of times they let that build up to where maybe one day it doesn't bother them. Maybe on the 3rd day, the 10th day, the 50th day, now they're just bubbling over, as opposed to just having the conversation, because they may not even know that it bothers anyone, and they didn't know it was an issue because maybe where they used to live, it was not, or whatever reason. And so it's a matter of, you're so right, it's communication. And it's hard for the landlord to get in the middle of this without really knowing. And the reality is our job is not to enforce the law. Our job is to enforce the lease agreement. So, if somebody's, playing their music after hours and that is unlawful, that's a matter for the authorities. That's not a matter, in my opinion, for me to go there and tell them to stop doing it. I'm not the law. I can only enforce the lease. And if it's part of the lease and they're violating the lease, that's another conversation. But normally that's not going to resolve the situation, except to maybe have them leave, which at the end of the thing is probably not the best thing for your pocketbook and for your business model, to lose a part of your cash flow when it very simply could be resolved through conversation. So I completely agree with you on that.
Yeah, exactly. And disruptive tenants, and it's not even about noise. It could just be the way that someone parks in a parking lot. I mean, that could be considered disruptive to a resident or a neighbor, but it's also filtering out some of the fluff, because I do think that 30 or 40% of the requests that we get for noise complaints or just disorderly conduct, I'm 100% confident that 40% of those could be resolved with a conversation. And if you don't have it, if you don't give them the opportunity to have the ask, then you're just setting yourself up for more work being the mediator, which we're not the mediator, we're the lease enforcers. You have to remind yourself of your position in the whole thing too. Totally agree.
And again, our job is not to interpret, it's just to go off of facts.
Yep, that's exactly it.
Any other things that you would suggest?
The other thing, just for Northern Nevada landlords, that's important as well. Know your eviction laws. If you do find yourself in a situation where a resident is truly being disruptive and you've tried all of your outs, you've tried all of your avenues, file for a nuisance eviction. It's a 5-day notice. It's run through the court systems here. It gives the resident a certain amount of days to respond to it or cure the problem. If it continues after that and you have documented reports, statements from residents or neighbors, then take it to court. Let a judge decide what is right and what is wrong. And the judge at that point can either grant you the resident to move out of your property within a reasonable period of time, or it can allow the landlord to be informed as to what the rules are and the state laws. So know what you need to do, and if you do need to nip something in the bud.
Yeah, that's great. And just to kind of wrap it up, what I would say is that you're running a business when you own a rental property. It is not emotions. It is not the place where you work off of your feelings or your gut reaction. I don't know anyone that's ever done a gut reaction and they were glad that they went down that path as opposed to a business model and a business solution. Again, our job is not to place blame or anything. Our job is to run a business. And that's why you want to make sure you keep your emotions out of it and you look at it from a business perspective. You don't want to be right psychologically or emotionally and you lose out financially because you maybe took the side of the wrong resident, which you should never do. And now you created a situation where the good resident left, the bad one stayed, and now you have a bigger problem. So it just, and again, like you said, every area is different. So if you're in Northern Nevada and you're in Reno, that's why it may make sense to hire a professional, because you may not know what the laws are, what you can do, can't do, what you can say, can't say, and that kind of thing. So I would be very, very careful. And Trevor, if somebody wants to talk to you about that, how would they get a hold of you?
Yeah, definitely. I have an office here on 1575 DeLucci Lane, right on the backside of Meadowood Mall. And I also give my numbers out to local investors or potential investors that may want to come on with me in the future. My number for my office here is 775-335-0124. Always glad to take a call and go over questions just like this.
That's great. And for those of you that want to know more about local real estate or a larger national scale, I would encourage you to join our Facebook group. It is the Mastermind, MYND, Mastermind Real Estate Investment Club. There you will be able to converse with expert investors. You'll be able to talk, engage, and converse with people like myself, Trevor, other people. For like, comment, engage, whatever you want to know about real estate, that's where you would want to go. Also, every week we have a brand new podcast show coming out called The Mindful Investor. It's on iTunes, Spotify, and all other channels such as that. And there we talk to novice investors as well as very, very experienced. And we not only know about their wins, but I want to know more about their failures and their challenges and how they've overcome them, so that people like you and myself can learn and engage with people like that to get good lessons. So make sure you join both of those. And on behalf of Trevor and myself, thank you for watching, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you'd like to keep the conversation going, join our Facebook group.